welcome back here. It's halftime here at Upper Dublin High School. Bob Long, Jason Bempo, Rob Stott, and we have Bill Wasylenko here as well, a LaSalle football historian alongside us here to talk at the halftime show. Bill, you're also about to be a Hall of Inductees member very soon. You're inducted into the Hall of Athletics at LaSalle next Saturday at the homecoming game. Congratulations on that, and tell us what the whole process has been like for you.
It's really an honor, an unexpected and humbling honor. I was once cut from JV bowling, so for me to get into the Hall of Athletics, it defies description. I got a call in work probably about 3 months ago from Marty Stanzak. Many of you know Marty. And I thought he was just trying to get some emails from the class of the 1989 football team, which was getting in. When he told me that I was going to be inducted in the Hall of Fame, it just sort of like shocked me. And I just sat at my desk for about a half hour and just it was sort of numb that would occur. But it's 8 days from now, it's actually going to happen. Pretty amazing.
You are referred to by Ted Solari as the wizard with a Y of Windmore for the articles you put on his website. And, of course, Ted, the preeminent source of all things high school athletics from a wide perspective across Philadelphia, but he relies on guys like you that do it at the program level. And you have compiled 25 years of the LaSalle versus St. Joe's Prep rivalry. You've done 100 players who have scored a touchdown in LaSalle history. What was the genesis for you taking that step and becoming this involved with the LaSalle program?
I'll first say that Ted Solari was probably one of the catalysts for me being able to compile data. He has so much stuff on his website. He sent me rosters from back in the 70s and 80s, so he really started me off in a lot of things that I did. I think that the catalyst probably was right after the 09 state championship. I was going to become the communications director for the Touchdown Club for the coming year. And I just wanted to get to know more about LaSalle football as I was going to be transmitting that information to the parents. And so I scooped up a lot of old yearbooks, got to know about the past history of LaSalle football, knowing some of it already, but it just engulfed me and just brought me in, and it went from a hobby to a passion to an obsession. And I really just love doing that, of merging some of the old guys with the young guys. Sitting in front of me are two greats from the early 60s, Jim Cowell and Jim Maxwell. Getting to talk to guys like that and getting to stand in front of the team for the alma mater as we do it now, maybe spanning 75 years of LaSalle football in terms of my interactions with people. It's just really been a blast.
And, you know, beyond just what you do in terms of keeping track of stats and writing, a lot of that writing goes towards a newsletter that I know a lot of this community, it receives as far as LaSalle football and beyond just the football program, just people that are fans of LaSalle or LaSalle enthusiasts. So what kind of feedback or what do you hear from people as far as, what they think about your newsletter and kind of the work you do there, keeping everyone connected with this community?
Well, for instance, on game day, I now basically take a bunch of 3x5 index cards and write down every play, who made the tackle, what kind of play it was. I actually tried to do it with a recorder one time, and during the middle of a play, I dropped the recorder through the stands. So I needed to go back to paper and pencil, and that's what I do. And I'll go home and write basically about play-by-play of the whole game and get that out to everyone probably sometime after midnight. So that's the current thing. And then I have a lot of other features where I might do something about a team in the past. I just did a retrospect on the 2006 team, and it was the miracle at Northeast High School where LaSalle beat the Prep 14-7. And one of the stars of that game is walking along the sidelines for LaSalle right now, Joe Migliaris, who's a receivers coach. And he made some great catches in that game, including a touchdown catch. So every time you just come out to a LaSalle game, you see the current game, but you see history of LaSalle in the stands, on the field. It's just all encompassing now when you pull it all together.
This is Bill Wasylenko. He's a LaSalle historian here, and we can't let you get out of here before we ask you about your sons and their experience with LaSalle football. I know that they were very accomplished players, and you derived a lot of joy out of that. So what was it like, not just to do this as a patron and somebody that is a steward of the program, but to have your own flesh and blood play for the Explorers as well?
Yeah, Well, Steve, a graduate of 2011, was a baseball guy, not a football guy. But Dan, in 2012, did play football all 4 years. He was a first-team All-Catholic offensive tackle in his senior year. In 2001, I took them to their first LaSalle game at Plymouth Whitemarsh. They were playing Plymouth Whitemarsh in an opening game. The game ended in a 7-7 tie. It was shut down by lightning, believe it or not. But when I came to the game, I had not been back to a LaSalle game for plus 25 years. I almost didn't want to see anyone that I knew at the game. So you just sort of crept in, you sat down. But then a practice that Joe Callister started in like 1984 was the band playing the Alma Mater with the team holding up the helmets. And that grabbed me. It basically grabbed my heart, and it says, I got to come back. And that just was a slow, long journey back to LaSalle. A great story in 2005 that happened basically at a baseball camp with my sons was just another great experience they have, and they were starting to bleed blue and gold. So it was a slam dunk that we were going to be sending our boys to LaSalle, and they had a great life, great 4 years here, and it still goes on as they've passed through college. I mean, they're always back and getting together with some of their classmates, and it'll go on forever in their lives.
So one question I have, and I know this is a tough one because you know a lot of history going back many years of LaSalle football, but if you had to pick a year, that comes across as one of the most exciting in the history of this program, what year would you point to and why?
Well, the closest one that I would say is obviously the state championship year. Steve Sinnott lives next door to me, and the whole team would come over all summer long after having lost to George Washington in the previous year in the city title game. And there was just a mission that those guys were on, and you just saw it. It was a very senior-laden team. They went through a bunch of hurdles. They won a couple games in the snow, including the state championship game, and that's the one that I'm most intimately involved in. But as I go back and look, I mean, there were great teams, the 1955 team, the 1957 team, the undefeated 1996 team, 14 straight wins, and now the 1989 team, which is going to get into the Hall of Athletics next Saturday. All were great teams, and there actually are some others too, but I probably got to lean right now to the 2009 team.
There you go. And of course there was the 2006 team that kind of got it all started in the Drew Gordon era, winning that game against St. Joe's Prep. You can catch that retrospect on Bill Wasylenko's YouTube channel, and I know that that's gotten some phenomenal viewership already, and hopefully we can drive some more traffic as well, because the work you put in there means so much to a lot of people here at LaSalle.
So for those who don't know, tell them where they can go.
There you go.
Okay, the YouTube site, my channel is Billy Waz, W-A-Z, LS69. So there's a lot of things that I've done. There's probably about 45 or 50 videos of LaSalle football, some great plays, some individual highlights of certain players, and some themes. And there's a couple of them. One is called 100 Players, 100 Touchdowns. And then there's a sequel to that, another 100. So there's 200 different LaSalle players that you can see score touchdowns. I have about 83 more, but I think as we get a couple more people like Octavius Carter and others score, maybe we'll get up to 100 and be able to get that third volume going.
Bill, live TV here. We'll have you slide in just a little bit as the coaches are coming by here for Archbishop Carroll. Certainly apologize for that, but it's a look inside the booth and the real life nature of live TV. So that's a lot of fun. There's Chris Carabello coming by as well. Bill Wasylenko is here with us. Bill, LaSalle plays its 1,000th game next week against Archbishop Ryan. It's at Plymouth Whitemarsh High School. It's homecoming weekend. Please tell us all about the activities and the fanfare that will occur that weekend.
Yeah, it's really a day to show up at LaSalle and get involved in a triple header. It is the Hall of Athletics induction ceremony inside the school. I think it's in the auditorium at 1 o'clock. That'll go on for about an hour and a half. And then there's a family barbecue from 3 to 6. I believe that's in the gymnasium. And that is a neat affair as people file in from the Hall of Athletics ceremony. If you buy a ticket to that, you also get a ticket to the game that night, which will be at Plymouth Whitemarsh against Archbishop Ryan. It will be a homecoming game, and it will be LaSalle's 1,000th game. Quite a journey from their first games in 1903. And just try to be there. It'll be a momentous affair.
Let's talk this team quickly as we turn our attention in just a few minutes to the second half. This team has parallels. You mentioned the 1957 undefeated team, the city champion. There's some parallels there with Al Selecki, the grandfather of Danny Selecki, who also came in a backup capacity in this third game of the season, led them to wins. Danny, much of the same so far. a big-time win against Malvern Prep, perhaps unexpected by some, and then this one taking care of business early. If you could give your perspective on this year's team compared with everything else you've seen, read about, researched in LaSalle football history.
All of LaSalle's championship teams seem to have had a great core of seniors, and especially a core of seniors on the offensive and defensive lines, and that's what this team has. Championship teams also have to have great skill position players, a quarterback who can move that ball around the field, and a good defensive back seven. Right now, I think, there's still some testing going on maybe with the defensive backs, but things are picking up defensive-wise, and it really is a team that's coming together, and it's going to have has already had a lot of experience prior to this year, and come late October, we should be ready to roll with some of the big dogs in the league.
Bill Wasylenko, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it. The Wizard of Winmore and soon-to-be Hall of Athletics inductee. Thanks for coming on the broadcast.
Thanks a lot, Bob. Okay.
Good seeing you.
Take care, guys. Okay, thank you.
And it's time for football, just like that.
Wow.